the program started. Welcome again. My name is Beth Simos. I am Vice President of Marketing here at WayForth, and like to welcome everyone to the third webinar in our fall series, The Emotionality of Moving and Moving On. We are so excited about the presentation and our presenter today, and I think we're in for a real treat. But before we begin, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. You'll see on the screen an overview of some of the features if you are unfamiliar with webinar formats, and let me explain these to you. We have muted everyone for the benefit of the presentation. We find that muting ensures that everyone can hear the presentation very clearly and there are no disruptions. That means we won't be able to hear you if you talk. If you have questions during or after, please type them in the chat pane on your screen, and Courtney, our marketing manager, will be monitoring the chat, collecting those questions, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. Again, just remember if there is a question, there are several other members of the group who have the same question. So please be doing yourself a favor and everyone else and go ahead and ask your question. If you have any technical help, please indicate so in the chat function. Type those in and we will respond to answer any of your technical questions. We are recording the webinar for training purposes, but we are not sending this out or sharing this with anyone. We will share our contact information at the end of the presentation so that you can reach out to us with any additional questions. So to practice the chat function, if everyone would just put into the chat where you're dialing in from or joining us from, what city or state, so we have a sense of where everyone is today. Great, we're seeing Wilmington, Delaware, Drexel Hill, PA, Limerick, PA, Santa Fe, New Mexico, New York, Winchester, Massachusetts, Texas, another Pennsylvania, Maryland, North Carolina, Buffalo, New York. Thank you, everyone. And that is how we encourage everyone to use the chat function. Just type in there and we will be monitoring that throughout the webinar. Just a little bit of an overview about WayForth and the difference. We are a vetted and trusted AARP transition management expert providing solutions. We are the largest total home transition company in the country, specializing in helping our clients get excited about downsizing, putting their homes on the market, and moving. We currently have services and offices from Maine to Florida, all up and down the East Coast, and we can coordinate long distance moves across the country with partners. Our leadership team has over 80 years of combined industry experience. We are also COVID-19 certified, and we have a program called WaySafe, and that is one of the most comprehensive health and safety protocols in the industry. We are changing the way people move, so we hope to be able to help you with your next move so that you can experience the WayForth way of moving. We do cover products and services in 3 categories: move management, which is for planning, downsizing, moving, and resettling. We have home sale management and content management, storage, inventory, transportation, and clearing out of estates. Once again, our contact information will be in the chat and at the end of the presentation if you have any questions. So let's move on to the topic of our webinar today. We do appreciate your interest and participation, and we really look forward to hearing from you and answering any questions you have as you move down towards your downsizing and moving journey. Let me briefly introduce our presenter today, Caroline Carter. She serves as a managing director of WayForth's Florida East region. She comes to WayForth with a variety of experience. She is the creator of the Perfect Listing and Total Home Transition Process, Smart Moves Masterclass, and she's also founder and CEO of Done in a Day, a Metro Washington, D.C. and Greater Palm Beach, Florida professional home transition company. We are excited to have Caroline as part of our WayForth team and bringing all of that expertise and experience to our clients. Since 2005, Caroline has partnered with over 2,000 homeowners and their realtors, using her unique approach of preparing the house to sell fast for top dollar while coordinating the move into their new home. Her work has been featured in local and national media, including the Washington Post, Washington Times, Washington Home and Garden, the Northwest Current, Home, Fox News, HGTV, and much more. So without further ado, I will now pass it over to Caroline.
Thank you, Beth, and welcome everyone. I'm Caroline Carter, and I'm so excited to be here today. I'm going to share with you a topic that I'm truly passionate about, and that's how to create a successful home transition from one house to the next. Specifically, we're going to focus on the emotions this life-changing event creates, understanding it, preparing for it, and the critical steps necessary to create a successful transition for ourselves or those that we're working with. But before we jump into our topic today, I want to take a minute to thank WayForth leadership for allowing me to share this training with you and for you taking time out of your busy day to be here. All right, let's get started. We're going to start off today by talking about the move management industry in general and focus on the heart of our training, the emotionality of moving and its front and back stories. We'll cover the most important and common challenges every seller encounters and how to successfully ride the emotional roller coaster. And we'll round out our training today with what to expect during the 3 phases of a home transition. Now, we have a lot to cover, so as Beth suggested, please feel free to grab a piece of paper and a pen, jot down questions as we move through the presentation, because we'll leave time at the end to answer all of your questions. Did you know that the USA Today reports that 40 million people in the US move each year? And according to the US Census Bureau, Americans move more than 11.7 times throughout their lifetime. That's more than any other culture in the world. The research also shows that moving is one of the 5 most stressful life-changing events, along with death, divorce, illness, and loss of a job. And as a society, we typically consider the preparation of the home to sell, the sale of the home, and the move to be 3 separate, unrelated events, rather than one continuous event with 3 phases. We'll discuss why this thinking is skewed and why WayForth is working diligently to change this belief and why this is so important to you. This relatively new industry is referred to as move management. I believe that we have a huge opportunity to change the way we view home transition. And it starts with creating an awareness of the stress and anxiety surrounding a move, and education about this stress and how it's going to affect you or your clients is really critical to the success of the process. I also believe that every seller should have access to the same tools necessary to create a successful sale at top dollar. But currently they don't. To start, you need to understand the journey that you or your client will take from beginning to end and how to prepare for it emotionally, financially, and physically. Each of these distinct elements is going to play a major role in every decision that you or your client will make along the way, as well as determining your overall satisfaction with the process. Now, WayForth understands the difficulty of this journey and offers partnership, guidance, and support when embarking on this life-changing event. But we also know that your awareness, your education, and your personal and professional relationships are the ultimate determining factor to its success. So what I'm hoping to provide you with today is a fundamental understanding of the emotional difficulty that we, our family, our friends, and our clients face when moving and moving on, and the steps that we can take to help ourselves or others we're working with to create a successful home transition journey from beginning to end. I think we can all agree that moving affects every aspect of our daily lives, and this process is going to affect some of us more than others. So just what is the emotionality of moving and moving on, and really why is it so important to understand? Well, it refers to the myriad of positive and negative emotions you, your family, and your clients are going to experience over the course of the sale of the home and the move. This emotionality is going to affect every single transaction you have and every single decision you make during the process. But let me repeat this because it's so incredibly important and people forget. The emotionality that you are going to experience over the course of this transition will affect every decision, both big and small. This process also highlights the emotional and financial investment we make in our own homes and the difficulty we face in letting go. And it's this emotional and financial investment that's the one common thread among sellers. Buying a house, creating a home, and then turning it back into a marketable house to sell is a huge challenge for most sellers. Further, this investment may be the largest investment you own, but unlike other investments you own, the ability to view it non-emotionally is very, very difficult. The decisions you make regarding this valuable asset are critical, and it's the emotion that most often will prevent sellers from making educated decisions throughout the process. Now, I know that those of us who work in real estate and the move management industry are sensitive to the reality that sellers face. But we also have to recognize the impact that the emotionality has on the seller. And to do this, we need to understand that there are two stories being played out at the same time. The first is the front story, and the second is the back story. Now, the front story is the story we're all most familiar with because it relates to the logistics and tactical issues the seller's dealing with, right? The reason they're moving, their schedule, the scope of work that needs to be done to sell their home at top dollar, researching and finding a new home, storage, the actual sale of the home. But the backstory refers to the emotional story being played out behind the scenes, which is just as important, if not more important, to the overall success of the process. The backstory is the story of family, marriage, relationships, work life, kids, schools, relatives, friends, community. And while this story is unique to each transition, there are common reactions and emotions we need to expect and prepare to deal with over the course of the transition. These aren't unique, and they refer to the emotional and physical highs and lows that each seller or clients and their families are going to experience. And while you may never really know what the backstory is, you need to know that there is one. Now, I would argue that both stories, both the front and the back story, are equally important to the success of a home transition. But it's the back story we're really going to focus on today, the big picture story, and it can't be ignored. Now, I'm sure that we're all very confident in our ability to support our sellers with all aspects of the front story or the logistics of the sale and move. But the question is, are we equally as good at supporting them with the backstory or the emotional story? How would our support change if we considered the front and back stories to be of equal importance during home transition. This is what I call the emotionality of moving and moving on. And the cost of not considering these stories equally important has a huge impact across all aspects of the process, but specifically on the added time and money that you or your client will spend. Now, everyone knows how to move, right? You think you know how to move and you'd actually be right. But again, you're typically describing the logistics of a move or the front story. And we now know that that's the easy part. It's the emotional attachment to this current life and investment, letting go of it and what it represents, that's the hard part. This makes moving more emotionally difficult than we think it's ever going to be. Honestly, 16 years in this business, I have yet to meet a client who is totally prepared for this process. They think they know what to expect, but they actually have no idea how the move will progress and how they'll deal with challenges along the way. Because emotions are neither right nor wrong. They just are. And we, along with our families and pets, are going to experience a full range of emotions, both good and bad, surrounding the bigger decision to sell and move. The key is you may not know what you're actually feeling or what they're feeling at the time that you're interacting with them or at any point throughout the process, because they're not going to tell you. They may not even know themselves, or they may be hesitant to admit what they appear to perceive as a weakness. What we do know is that you're embarking on a journey that will literally and figuratively pull the rug out from underneath everything that's familiar to you. So yes, moving will disrupt every aspect of your life. Home, work, friends, community, the list goes on. So let's see a show of hands in the chat. How many of you have ever moved? Moved across state lines or to another country? How about with toddlers, angry teenagers, pets acting out? Can you remember the experience? Well, I sure can. I've recently completed my 13th move, and it was brutal, and I'm in this business. But you may think, I packed a bunch of boxes. It was no big deal. Or perhaps you remember the experience as physically and emotionally exhausting. But you know what? Otherwise, it was pretty smooth. Or perhaps it was so difficult and filled with a poltergeist of issues that you completely blocked it out. I've dealt with those too. Think about it. Did your move go without a hitch, or was it the topic of a dinner conversation? Did you need a trip to the wellness center when it was finally over? For those of us who are service providers, can you put yourself in your client's shoes? And more importantly, do you put yourself in your client's shoes? Now, what you need to keep in mind is that this process truly is an emotional roller coaster for you and the clients you're supporting. And it starts from the moment you decide to sell, and it's not over until the last box is unpacked in the new location. So understanding this roller coaster ride of emotions and having the tools to support and keep yourself or your clients on track is going to make it easier to create success at each stage of the process. And like any roller coaster, there are going to be ups and downs. Once the decision is made to relocate, you may feel anxiety, sadness, fear of the unknown, a lack of control over your own life, or you may feel happiness, satisfaction, excitement, eagerness, or all of the above. The ups are filled with positive anticipation, and the downs are filled with feeling out of control and untethered. Your roller coaster may have dizzying loops where you may feel frozen with anxiety and indecision, and you just need to hang on. And finally, the promise of relief and giddiness as the ride pulls back into the station. You unbuckle your seatbelt and breathe a sigh of relief. It's over. Anyone on this journey can experience all of these emotions throughout the course of a day, a week, a month, or however long it takes to settle into your new home. Remember, The ride lasts until the last box is unpacked in your new home. No wonder why the front story is the story we all focus on, right? It's easier to manage. The logistics, the scope, the schedule, the dates on the calendar. It's much harder for us to focus on the backstory of what's playing out behind the scenes. But what is important is that we acknowledge that there is a backstory. And move management partners like WayForth offer the most important tools in the transitional arsenal: our silence, our interest, our support, and our ability to listen without judgment about the challenges that you're experiencing. We offer solutions that are proven to successfully meet each challenge you may encounter along the way. And this is where our relationship with those in transition is very valuable, because they feel that we've recognized the emotional difficulty, we understand the issues, we empathize with them, and we've helped them to navigate a process with professionalism, connection, and true caring. I get that we're all busy juggling our lives every day. We just need to remember that when we are supporting someone in transition, this is one item on our list of things to do, but it's their entire life that's being upended. So if we recognize this, we can connect human being to human being. And it's this human element of support and connection that WayForth provides to every client every time. Now, let's talk a little bit about the why. Why does this transition affect people so deeply and differently at various points throughout the process? Well, to visually understand how to explain this, let's take a look at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Now, if you look at the bottom of the pyramid, you're going to see that our most basic needs of food, water, warmth, rest, security, and safety are there right at the bottom, holding up the entire pyramid. Moving disrupts each one of these basic needs. Now, the reason this is so critical to understand is that we know the ability to deal with the endless task list and the schedule becomes more challenging as we, those of us in transition, become more physically and emotionally exhausted. And as a result, the quality of the decisions that we're making degrades over time. Often we're so exhausted, we have a hard time moving forward. We're stuck and we need a helping hand to get over the hump and move on to the next step in the process. Think about it. This is our opportunity to truly partner with someone in transition. What kind of impact can our understanding and show of empathy have on ourselves, if we're the ones in transition, or our loved ones, our friends, or our clients? Well, WayForth can tell you it has a huge impact. And it can make the difference between a chaotic process and a smooth one. Now, this reminds me of two examples of leading with understanding and empathy during an initial visit with a potential client that I'd like to share with you today. Pardon me. The first one was I met with an older couple who had lived in their home for 38 years. Now, the wife immediately took control of the meeting, was speaking loudly, and told me exactly what they needed without stopping to breathe, all before we were able to even sit down at the kitchen table. After a few minutes, as she continued to talk to me, I noticed her husband subtly leaning on his hand and turning off his hearing aid and announced, "Well, I'll leave you girls to it," and left the room. His wife continued to talk without missing a beat, and I thought, how can I connect with this person? So I took a breath and I thought about her backstory. I tuned in to her anxiety, her fear of the unknown, and her loss of control. I also got a little peek into the current emotional dynamic of their marriage, and I knew that I needed to connect with her since her husband seemed to indicate that she was the one in control. Honestly, the client's demeanor didn't change during the visit, but mine did, and we were able to come to terms and talk about the next steps in their transition. I made the decision to stay quiet and allowed her to be in control. We provided excellent service and reassured her continuously throughout the project that we were all on the same side, and I was able to calmly deal with each issue as it arose. After all, this move was not about me. It was about her. Oh, and by the way, the husband spent most of the project in his workroom in the basement. And while he was very pleasant each time we interacted with him, he was hardly ever around. The good news is that their transition went without a hitch, and the couple was thrilled overall with their experience. I also want to share with you another story about an initial client visit and a tiny dog that I'll never forget. The husband answered the door with a loud welcome and a bone-crushing handshake. As I went to step inside the foyer, I noticed the wife standing back holding a small little dog in a harness, instructing me not to enter until their special needs dog, that was a new one for me, approached and accepted me. Well, the seconds ticked by as I stood there, and the little dog trotted forward. I put out my hand and jumped at the loud clapping and good job from the parents as the dog trotted back to the safety of his mother's arms. And that was just the beginning. But the backstory? The adult kids were out of the house and the dog was the only baby left at home. The husband had just retired as a partner from his law firm, and the anxiety associated with the decision to downsize was palpable throughout the house. But again, we came to terms and agreed to begin the downsizing portion of the project in 3 weeks. 2 days later, on a Sunday, my phone started ringing with an unfamiliar number. I had several messages in quick succession, all from this same number. I played the first message. Well, it was from the husband I had met on Friday afternoon, telling me in a very heated tone of voice that while he told his wife to pack up their unwanted books in the library, she carried 50 boxes of books down 3 flights of stairs to the garage and had thrown out her back as a result. Well, he was extremely upset and intimated that it was my fault. Well, clearly it wasn't. But again, I took a breath. I looked for a way to neutralize the situation and remember the backstory. By doing that, it allowed me to connect with him. My understanding of his emotional stress of the upcoming pack and move and the need to get started on anything he could control, cautioned me to remain calm. And this dynamic really continued throughout many of the emotional reactions that presented throughout the project. Thankfully, while doing the final walkthrough in their new home, they genuinely thanked us and said they could not have made this move without our help. Excuse me. When I look back on these stories now, I understood immediately what was happening in both situations. And while each story was unique to their process, I adjusted my approach to acknowledge and deal with their stress because I recognized the importance of their emotional backstory. In each case, I was able to remind them that I did understand the emotional difficulty they were experiencing leaving their home of many years, and it immediately diffused the situation. They were able to trust that we really did have their best interests at heart, so that together we could move forward with the next step in the process together. So leading with understanding, empathy, support, and expert solutions will always be a game changer. Every project is unique, but the actual home transition journey is the same. So we need to plan for surprises along the way and have ready access to these expert solutions to move forward successfully. Now let's talk specifically about some of the challenges a seller will encounter along the way. Managing the schedule alone can be stressful. The overall timing of each part of the transition and the deadlines for them and the decision to relocate until you're completely settled is sometimes a very short window. The first thought for anyone beginning this home transition journey is, I can't possibly get everything done in that time frame. Cue the anxiety. Here's a little secret. It doesn't matter how long or how short the time frame for the transition is, the reaction is always the same. You need to be prepared for and ready for each key event and hard deadline. And unless you know what to expect, you're not always prepared or ready. So let me ask a question for those of us in move management that are on the call today. How many times does a crew show up to load on the appointed day at the appointed time, and the client is frantic and unorganized, trying to personally pack the last of the master bedroom, the bathroom, or the kitchen? Sound familiar? Okay, how about the realtors that have joined us today? How many times have you shown up to host an open house only to find the family still there scrambling to clean up from last night's dinner and the kitchen is still a mess? Look, it happens, and it happens a lot because we're all human. The scope of work refers to the actual work to be done to prepare a home to sell. And this task list is going to differ for each house based on the delayed maintenance and its current presentation versus buyer expectation, meaning what buyers of today are expecting to find in a house and what they're willing to pay for. You also have the endless list of what you need to do to be ready for the family to move, like files, doctor's files, school records, financial records, pet records. The organization of the home files alone is time consuming and can make you want to pull out your hair. Additionally, you may be dealing with securing contractors, dealing with their schedules and supervising their work that needs to be done to visually and cosmetically get your house ready to sell. Now, add in the time it takes to find your new home. Things are going to go wrong. And what happens when they do? Well, I can tell you from experience, emotional breakdown and the inability to move forward is a strong possibility. It's chaotic, and we've all seen it play out again and again. The emotions that you, your family, and yes, your pets are experiencing can and will change hourly or daily and seem to be all over the place. And if this wasn't challenging enough for us, we typically don't know where to start or who to trust. Today, there are too many experts telling us what to do and how to do it. And it's very confusing not to have a roadmap to refer to from a trusted source in the industry like WayForth. When you conceptually understand the general process, and maybe you've even moved several times, what you need to remember is each move is unique. You are at a different place and time in your life, and it's going to present different challenges. But hopefully, now you know what to expect emotionally and how critical it is to have this step-by-step roadmap and a trusted and experienced partner during the process. What you need to remember is that no matter how prepared you think you are for this transition, the prolonged emotional, financial, and physical stress will take its toll. So at this point, you're probably thinking, well, good Lord, how exactly can we be successful with this transition? Well, we can start by understanding that the home transition process is a definable process, and following it step by step is going to be the key to your overall satisfaction and success with the move. You need to acknowledge that there are going to be emotional, financial, and physical elements to the journey, and each element may present with potential challenges. But you also need to know that with each challenge, there are proven solutions available. It's important to empower yourself or the client that you're working with to take more responsibility for and assume more control over a process that is going to affect them and their families the most. This empowerment is going to greatly reduce the overwhelm, stress level, and anxiety. It's also important to maintain your independence by planning a move by choice rather than one due to need. You want to adjust your expectations and prepare for, even if they don't happen, feel prepared for unwanted surprises, delays, or higher costs. And again, be very clear on the expert solutions that are available to you when these challenges arise. View the preparation for the sale of the home, and the move as one continuous process rather than three separate and unrelated events. WayForth combines these three phases of transition, so the seller's 60% packed to move as a result of preparing the house to sell. Genius. What that means to you is that the hard physical and emotional part of the transition is over, and you're actually positioned to accept an offer with a quick closing date. Now, let's cover the three phases of the process and what to expect during each phase. The house preparation includes the sorting, organizing, packing to store for the move, and the preparation of the house to sell. It also includes making the donations, the sale of your household goods, and the disposal of your unwanted items. And it's during this phase that you're going to be completing the fast, easy, and inexpensive updates that is going to help you to sell your house fast for top dollar. The sound of silence refers to that period of uncertainty when the house is on the market and the seller is anxiously awaiting an offer. They often have to deal with negative feedback and buyer justification, or no feedback at all because the house isn't being shown. The third phase is the physical move, and that obviously refers to the transport of household goods from one home to the next. Again, each phase of this process presents its own set of challenges, but anticipating this and having the expert solutions ready will actually allow you to make these educated and informed decisions and move through each phase successfully. Now, it's important to mention at this point that some of you may be stuck in the messy middle for a while, and that's the period of time when your house is on the market. As the experts and partners supporting you, we understand that, and we need to remember that you're the ones doing the work, even if that work means waiting for an offer. We understand that it's incredibly stressful. You need to remind yourself of this fact too. Our job is to empathize and gently guide logistically and emotionally, whenever, wherever, and however we can. And we often play two roles at the same time: cheerleader and tour leader. The good news is we truly believe that many of these transition challenges are easily overcome by working together and focusing on the tools available with companies like WayForth. The move management industry was created to reduce this overwhelm, stress, and the anxiety that this life-changing event creates. And it is truly possible to create a smooth transition to your next home. How do we know this? We know this because thousands of our clients make it a point to let us know that they couldn't have made their moves without us. At WayForth, we understand the importance of this process for every client, every time. Now, hopefully you will too. The opportunity as a society to bring awareness and education to how to transition successfully is huge. The relocation, real estate, and move management industries are still very separate. And although we're able to work together effectively for your benefit, there's still a lot of room for improvement. Understanding the emotionality of moving and moving on and how it'll affect you, your clients, and their families, and our relationship with you and them will really allow us as service professionals to truly connect and create rich, long-lasting relationships during this difficult, life-changing event. Project by project, client by client, family by family, human being by human being. So for those of you on our call today who really would like to take a peek at the actual roadmap or to dive deeper into more information about how to create a successful home transition in your own life, please feel free to get a copy of Smart Moves, How to Save Time and Money While Transitioning Your Home and Life. It's sold on Amazon or wherever books are sold, and it's a great personal or professional gift for everyone contemplating a move. Courtney's going to go ahead and put the link in our chat. But before we move on to our questions, I'd like to share a final story about the true power of a successful home transition. And I'm sharing this story with you today because it reminds me of why we do what we do. I was asked by a realtor a couple years ago, a realtor we've worked with for many years, to meet with a new client in their mid-60s who was downsizing. The home was located in one of the most sought-after neighborhoods in Northwest DC. The agent was eager to get the house on the market immediately. After all, it was April and smack in the middle of the spring market. And this agent told me that she believed a 5-day spruce up was really all that was needed to prepare it to sell. After all, it was a beautiful house, she assured me. And while we truly value and respect our partnership with realtors, we always keep an open mind until seeing the house, meeting with the client, because we need to understand their front and back story and how we can be of service. When I arrived, I immediately saw what the agent was talking about. The house was beautifully presented, immaculately maintained, both inside and out, and really didn't disappoint. It was ready to sell, and it would sell regardless of what we did, and at top dollar too. The real question was, at what price point would it sell and in what time frame? And was that all that the client really needed from us? During the initial visit, I learned that the 2 college-age daughters were off at school. The husband worked very long hours, and the wife had a very busy schedule. They were looking to buy an apartment in a new building, but their offer hadn't been accepted, and even if they did buy it, there would be weeks of work that needed to be done before they could actually move in. So while the wife was open to doing whatever she needed to do to get top dollar for the house, she really had no idea what to do or how to do it. She also had no idea what the time frame for the sale would be and assumed it was going to take a long time to sell the house. Well, after hearing her front story, I offered her 2 options. Number 1 was a quick spruce up to sell, just as the agent had suggested. We'd do a deep clean, restage a bit, new bedding in the girls' rooms, replace a carpet in the guest room, paint the dark attic walls, and add an additional bed. That would take the 5 days that the realtor had mentioned to organize and complete. Or she could consider embracing the home transition process, which based on the house size would take 15 working days. But it would include all the sorting, organizing, packing to store, donating, disposing of the unwanted items throughout the entire house. And it would also include that 5-day spruce up, but more importantly, it would position her family to accept a quick offer, okay, with a quick close if it presented. Now, I assured her if she chose this option, the hardest emotional and physical part of the process would be behind her. Well, she immediately agreed that the second, more comprehensive approach would be the biggest help to her and her family. Our team worked with her for 15 days, and the perfect listing was launched. She was 60% packed to move, which was already in our storage warehouse, and the house received, ready for this, after 10 days on the market, a cash offer over asking price, but here's the caveat, with a 10-day close. But they immediately accepted. While I had met the husband each day, he was very, very pleasant. He was on his way to work, very busy. I didn't get to know him as well as I got to know the wife, but he was very pleasant. And he commented each day on how much stuff they had. He couldn't believe it and how happy he was that they had our help because he couldn't be there to help his wife. 6 weeks later, at the end of July, I was enjoying a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning. As we were unpacking the last boxes in their new apartment, yes, they did get the apartment, The husband, wife, and one of the daughters were talking in the living room, and the husband said, Caroline, I have to be honest and let you know that I really had no idea how important this process was. But I trusted my wife to make the decision that would be best for us. And I really have to give credit where credit's due. Had we not listened to you and your judgment and followed your guidance, we never could have accepted that offer on the house. So I wanted to thank you. Well, you can imagine hearing that made my day. 2.5 months later, in mid-October, as I was sitting there having a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning, I actually saw his obituary in the Washington Post. I was shocked. I had no idea he was even sick. So the real backstory, he had pancreatic cancer, and settling his wife and family before he died was the only thing that mattered to him. And we had helped to make that happen without even knowing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. That was a terrific presentation. Appreciate that. We were also looking forward to it, and you did not disappoint us. Lots of amazing information, very helpful information, and a lot of inspiration to consider for all of us as we look to consider making a move, no matter the stage in our life at this point. So now we'd like to open it up to questions. We have a couple of emailed in questions as well as questions in the chat. So I'm going to turn this over to Courtney and see if there are any questions that we want to share with Caroline to address for us.
Caroline, I am anxious.
Yes.
I am anxious to downsize, but my family doesn't want me to let the house go. Should I ignore this? What's the best way to handle this?
Oh, that's a sticky wicket, Courtney. One of the things we know at WayForth is that a successful transition is a transition in which you are in control. I touched on that in the presentation, how it's important to empower others in transition or ourselves. If you are ahead of this decision, if you are able to maintain your independence and make this decision, then that's really what's important, because it's your transition that we're talking about here. So I think that if you're able to explain to your family members that you're doing what's best for you, that will always work out better than doing something, with resentment or something you're actually not ready to do at the time.
Question. I've downsized once before. How do I know what I'm going to need for my next move?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that one. So those of us who begin our downsizing process in our 50s or 60s do tend to downsize several times. One of the benefits that WayForth is able to provide to, those clients that we're working with is a floor planning exercise, which gives us the ability to help you to see in black and white on a planning board exactly what might go where in a potentially new property. So it actually takes all of the guesswork out of, what can I bring? Is this too big or too small? It actually is true to scale. And our clients have told us that this is an incredibly important part of their transition, because once they made the decision of what to take with them, they didn't have to think about it again because they took their favorites. And if they fit, great.
We can squeeze in one more question. Although I haven't decided to move yet, my family is pushing for it. They want me to downsize, but I want to start on my own time and not feel so pressured. Any tips on how I can accomplish this?
Absolutely. This too speaks to how incredibly important it is to create this transition, to take control of this transition, when you are physically and mentally able to do so, as opposed to waiting for it to happen due to need. So there are, and I certainly outline them in the book, Smart Moves, there is an exact process that you can begin on your time frame. It may be 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, but the process in the book, the roadmap in the book, will walk you through exactly where to start and what to do and how to do it, so that you can maintain the independence and retain control of your own transition.
Awesome.
Any more questions?
Yeah, let's do one more. I found a community that I'm very interested in. Timing is not an issue here as they have plenty of room for me, but I am discouraged because I don't know where to start. I don't have any family members close to help. It's just me. Luckily, my house is small, but this is all still so very stressful.
Okay, again, very, very common. Remember when I mentioned in the presentation that the one common thing that everybody says once they've made the decision to move is, I have no idea where to start and who to trust? Well, you've come to the right place, because WayForth does know where to start. And you can trust that we are able to, during our initial visit, speak specifically to your front and back story. What is going to make the most sense for you? And what makes the most sense for you is coming up with a schedule, as I touched on before, a schedule that you can live with and maintain over time. Physical and emotional exhaustion are a real deterrent for a lot of people, and it prevents them from being able to consider what it might mean to them to consider a move or a community or a downsize. But there are solutions available. So that's a great question, and it's a very common question. Kind of speaks to, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But when it comes to home transition, WayForth has definitely mapped out the process. And by following this roadmap, it's going to allow you to stay on track and do things in your own time frame with expert solutions at your fingertips.
Wonderful. Thank you, Caroline. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Caroline directly, or visit our website for additional educational information. Thank you again to everyone for spending the afternoon with us. Please take note again of the contact information and how you can receive your digital goodie bag. You will also receive an email shortly this afternoon with this information on accessing your digital goodie bag. And do not hesitate to call us if you think of any questions after this call. This is the end of our presentation for today. We hope to see you in January when we start our winter webinar series. Information about that winter webinar series will be posted soon on our website. Again, please contact us with any further questions. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.